Early on, I always thought that if I just wasn't using, that I'll be good. And it took me a lot of lumps and bumps to realize that life really begins again and recovery gets real when I don't have anything to hide behind. Always associated addiction with substances, but I eventually realized that because of the many traumas that I experienced in early childhood, sexual abuse, physical abuse, and verbal abuse, um, really led me down the road of seeking out anything that would make me feel better about me. Sexual abuse was something that I thought um, I felt good about as a kid because it gave me an outlet and it was the opposite sex. And so at the age of 5 and 6, this began, and it led me to seek this out to make me feel better about me, which in turn led me down a road of multiple relationships that were always unhealthy, because I brought the unhealthiness to the relationship because I hadn't been healed or hadn't even identified that it was a problem until I acquired this. I realized that I had an addiction to sex. And when I realized that, I had no control, and so it made me feel powerless, right? Uh, and not to mention, it in the culture that I was a part of, that was the thing. Like the more women, the more notoriety, and so I had this way of thinking that I was now trying to go against. And on one hand, I needed it to validate me, and on the other hand, it made me feel horrible. The fact that I never had anyone growing up, I didn't hear a lot that what I wasn't going to be, but what I didn't hear was what I could be, right? And with the abuse, that sent a message to me. It wasn't what was said, it was what was done to me that sent a message to me. And so I didn't feel uh, I didn't feel I like I said, I didn't feel like I was worthy. I didn't feel like I can accomplish anything. Um, I was very shaky and insecure. I was not confident at all about relationships. And that's part of that addiction, right? It's the quick fix and not the building of relationship. So I knew nothing about building relationship. Everything was associated with getting what I wanted. I think my biggest challenge was listening to the negative voices that came from myself because I had no esteem. I didn't know what self-esteem was. I was very insecure. I didn't believe I could really accomplish anything because why is it that when I think or want to do better in life, I don't feel like I'm worthy of it? I always have to go back to having a mom who acquired a crack addiction and lost everything, and then I had the opportunity to watch her become a butterfly, a beautiful woman, right? And so, because of her connection to recovery, it was something that was modeled. And there were times that I had stints of short-term recovery, right? And so I was gaining information, being educated, and what became the turning point for me was my experience with having a personal God. And I began to have this conviction that says that that's not good. right? Um, Along with continued training and mentoring, um, and that conviction just grew stronger and stronger, though the battle didn't stop. You know what it's like? It's like not giving up. It's not like it goes away overnight. Recovery is not an overnight event. Um, and it becomes very challenging because there's so much stigma associated with it, right? Because of a lack of knowledge for the larger community. But fortunately, my faith, even through the many challenges and failure and falls and slip ups, and you know, I had been given the fortitude to continue to fight. And so I can't say when it all ended, and quite frankly, it hasn't, because recovery is a lifelong journey. So I have to find different ways to cope with different things. And I had to be able to connect with people who could truly have empathy and understanding, and not try to help me from a judgmental place, you know, by correcting me, but to have people who could really empathize and but at the same time direct me. I like it to be known that the woman who was my enemy is now like my best friend, and that's my mom. And that's because of the work that she has done in her recovery. Um, and so it's you know, sometimes I just have to just keep going, right? Not give up. I learned to be very light on myself, whereas I was very abusive towards myself. Whenever I didn't feel like I accomplished something, um, I would use, or if I thought in my mind I'm not going to be able to accomplish it, I would use. Um, and that's being abusive to myself. And so I heard it said one time, Mark, if you're going to beat yourself up, do it with a feather. And so I began to practice being light on myself. One of the biggest challenges that I experienced in the whole recovery process was that I found out through a counselor that I didn't have a gray area. I didn't know what a gray area was, but I was only always on one end of the spectrum or the other. Either I was doing all bad, or I wanted to be all good. I struggled with 12 steps, and a big part of that was I struggled with myself. I never felt like I measured up wherever I went. Um, but 12 steps have become a major part of my life. Um, Having sponsors, people who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, um, having pastors and friends. I relate peer support to the experiences that I've had, uh, where there were individuals who had been in long-term recovery and wanted to support me. Um, and in many times, it wasn't by dictating to me what I needed to do. It was helping me to see what was available to me and how they could support me. So I strongly encourage offering many pathways to recovery, because I don't think we could put recovery in a box. Um, if we did, then we limit people from um, succeeding. The most important thing is to have love and to have empathy, because so many times I see individuals who are in long-term recovery who appear to have forgotten what the journey was like. And all of a sudden, we want to dictate to people what they should and shouldn't do, when sometimes we don't know what we should and shouldn't do. Not to I'm not saying that it doesn't, long-term recovery doesn't come with experience, but I've seen uh, supporting individuals best amplified through listening, through encouraging. And even if they made a mistake, not focusing on the mistake, but focusing on where their goals are, where they want to be at, and what they're trying to accomplish. Because so many times they've already been shamed. You know, if you make a mistake, I don't need you to tell me I made a mistake. I already feel horrible myself about making a mistake. And so when I can cheer an individual on and just say, man, we ain't gonna worry about that, man. We're gonna keep moving. How can I help you? Let's create a plan, a wellness plan, and it's gonna be your responsibility to follow it. I can't follow it for you, but I can walk alongside of you. I can encourage you. I can cheerlead for you, right? I can usher hope into you and share with you, man, the pains that I've been through. And because people supported me, I was able to just keep pushing forward. A lot of times when we condemn individuals, that makes them not want to come back to us. That makes them not feel welcome. And so where else do they have to go but back to what they know best? And so it's not my job to change people, but it's my job to support people in their change. Early on, I always thought that if I just wasn't using, that I'll be good. And it took me a lot of lumps and bumps to realize that life really begins again and recovery gets real when I don't have anything to hide behind. Without recovery, I wouldn't have the relationship that I have with my mom and my dad today. Without recovery, I would have never been reconciled to my 29-year-old daughter who I hadn't seen since she was 3 years old, but we reconciled 6 years ago. And because of that, I have 2 beautiful granddaughters. Without recovery, I wouldn't be able to sit here and smile. I wouldn't be able to have experienced the journey that I'm still on. Without recovery, it would be all bad for me. But because of recovery, the sky is the limit.